So in my previous couple videos we talked about crimping and heat shrinkless sleeving. This all pertains to doing your own custom cables for your power supplies. Most companies that do modular cables, EVGA, Corsair, whatever it may be, are going to have split wires, meaning there's going to be two wires going into the same socket on your connector. And if you buy a custom sleeved EVGA cable set, those two wires going into that one pin will each be individually sleeved without heat shrink. This is something that can be done, but for the at-home user without heat shrink, it's very, very challenging. In fact, I'm not really sure of a good way of doing that. So what most people do is you'll actually take, let's say these were your power supply wires, these both have to go to one pin. What you're going to end up doing instead is soldering or splicing the wire somewhere down the road and then sending it off to the connector. Now I know a lot of people kind of shy away when you say the word solder. It's really not that difficult. Soldering iron I'm going to be using here. This is a super cheap iron. For this type of work, this is all you need. You can probably get this for like $5 or $10 at Harbor Freight. As long as it gets hot, this will work, because we're not soldering like PCBs or doing micro soldering anywhere we're going to damage any passive components. This is just wires. So try not to melt the wire to death, but alright. So for intensive purposes, let's just say these are our wires that we're going to sleeve. Let me show you how we solder these together. So go ahead and strip the end of this wire. Your first wire you're going to want to have stripped back really far, probably farther than that. Let me go ahead and strip this back real quick, a little bit more. Okay. If you get a nice sharp blade, it's super easy to strip wire. Alright. Now this is the most difficult part of this process, I think. What you need to do is remove the insulation from a section of the wire. And the best way to do that, I may have to do this off camera, is to just set the wire down on the table. Set the wire down, get a very sharp knife, roll it, okay, until you get a slit. So as you can see, we do have, well, we have a slit starting. I'm going to make that slit a little bit larger. I actually do this in my fingers a lot. You can cut yourself very easily, so do as I say, not as I do. Anyway, you want to get that open, and then maybe about 5 or 10 millimeter, I don't know, whatever you think is good, it doesn't really matter. You want to do that again. Try not to cut your strands, of course. And then this is the tricky part. This is where you need a nice sharp blade. You're going to come in here, and yes, I did see this from Lutro originally, so this is pretty much a repeat of what he's done, but let's just show it again. I do a couple things differently than he does. So we're going to cut along that insulation. Beep. So now you can kind of see where we cut. Get your fingernail in there and pop that off. Okay. Clean that up a little bit. Now we're going to untwist the wires a little, so that's kind of open. You can either just twist this right around the wire, or you can try to do it the correct way, which would be to fan those open and try to just sort of slide those strands in. Yeah, it's not working out too well. Sorry, it's hard to do on camera, as usual. So I'm going to kind of just slide those strands in a little bit, and now I'm going to take them and twist them off. Okay, and you want something like that, maybe a little cleaner at that. Now, the most basic form of soldering out there is called tinning a wire, and there's a couple different ways you can do this. But what I'm going to show you is a way to make this a lot easier that I think many people who, don't do this all the time don't understand. So We got some MG rosin core solder. Generally speaking, even if you're using rosin, you want to just go with rosin core, and the idea of this is the center of the solder has rosin in it. Well, what's rosin? When rosin gets baking hot, it tends to clean and remove oxidization. Alright, and solder really likes clean wire to stick to. And the concept here with rosin core, first of all, you should have something like this. The sponge does work. I found I really like these brass shavings. They really clean off a tip very nicely, and this is an old, badly beat up tip. The concept here for using rosin core solder is you want to contact the wire and the solder at the same time, and the rosin will flow and you'll get a solder joint, which does work. So let's do that real quick just to demonstrate. Hopefully you can see. Let's get you zoomed in a little. Your concept is, like I said, you want to contact the wire and the solder and the soldering iron all at the same time, and this is kind of what you get. There you go. That's a tinned wire. Come on, focus. Alright, and that was a really light tinning. Okay, but that is rock solid in there. Alright, now let me tin it some more. Just this is usually what it's going to look like. Okay, that would be like fully tinned. You really don't need that much, but anyway, so that was a fairly good tinning job, and that does work. What that does is creates a lot of heat on the wire, and that heat is not necessary. And that is where this comes in. Okay, this is liquid flux colophane. People tend to use the wrong flux for this. You don't want to use the puck of that putty flux. That flux is designed for plumbing, and it's designed to be water soluble because it goes in pipes for doing silver solder. It's another thing. Do not get unleaded solder for this or any electronics. Okay, 60-40, 63-37 is my preference. Unleaded solder is meant for pipes and being in homes, places where people are going to come in contact with the lead. For electronics, you never want to use unleaded solder unless it's maybe all you got. Now, you will find like modern guitar amps and big companies who make modern electronics have gone to unleaded solder to be California safe or whatever. Unleaded solder has a lot of problems that leaded solder doesn't, and it requires way more heat to get hot. It's sort of like the difference between getting PETG to bend and acrylic to bend. So I'm going to show you now using flux. You always want to twist your strands. The tighter your strands are twisted, the better they're going to solder together. I'm going to show you how fast this is using flux. How fast and easy. Alright. Got a little applicator bottle. Now this is liquid flux, so it's going to flow right into the wire. Okay. Watch this. Ready? So last time we had to hold the soldering iron right up to the piece and, you know, melt it on. Check out how quick this is. Ready? And it's tinned. That's it. You just touch it to it. And usually it's even faster than that. I guess my iron isn't up to heat yet, because it generally goes whoosh and instantly tins up. Now that smoke coming off there, which you will get with or without adding your own flux, you don't want to breathe that smoke, folks. It is toxic. A little bit won't bother you, but you'll notice. I mean, I've gotten some headaches before. Alright, anyway, now let's do the splice. Alright, so now, knowing that flux is the way to go, watch how easy this splice is. Because now that you're dealing with two wires, it's a bigger source you need to heat, and it would require a lot more holding of the soldering heat, and this would require a lot more pressure from the soldering iron, which can melt components. Alright, but again, same concept. Get your tip clean. Gonna tin my tip a little. And we're going to go ahead and hold the iron to the piece and then just add some solder. As you can see, that solder is flowing right on. all set. I'm going to burn off some of that flux, and there you go. Easy peasy. In fact, that's how you know it's a good tinning job, when you don't see a huge goop of solder on there. Some people like to see that goop. We'll go ahead and do that. There you go. Alright. So now we have a perfect little solder joint. And that's all you got to do. So you now essentially have a spliced wire. Okay? That's how most custom sleevers do their split wires. If that little bit of flux on the wire is bothering you, the way it looks, or if it gets anywhere, isopropyl alcohol pulls that stuff right off, even after it's cured. Alright folks, so yes, get yourself the flux colophane. MG Chemicals makes it. It's not real expensive. You get a big container of it. This is the stuff you want to use. Don't use plumber's flux. Don't use silver solder. Have a good one.